Evening Campus, it is me, Kieran. You've been waiting for it. I've been waiting for it. It is the review of Midnight Children by Salman Rushdie. It's a 10 out of 10. We're gonna kick it off with a 10 out of 10. This is how good the book is. You see this dead drill? A nice fresh battery. No, it's not good enough. This is not good enough. So excessive. That is a good book drill. But how good is this book? Well, it was good enough, I tell you, to win the 1981 Man Booker Prize. But after 40 years, the Booker did the Booker of Bookers, or the best of Bookers, and it won. After 40 winners, it won the best. It won the best of the Bookers. Critical acclaim for a novel would do two things to readers. It will either make you want to read the book, or it puts you off, because there's some sense that you are expecting this book to live up to the expectations it already has on it. Yet it's counterintuitive, personally, because I love Salman Rushdie's work. So much so, my major thesis was on the Satanic Verses, a hugely controversial novel. And if you know nothing about this, know that there are some countries where you physically cannot get a copy of it. And if you want to assassinate Salman Rushdie, the country of Iran will take you as a safe haven, because they issued the religious decree, the fatwa. This is also a very complex piece of magical realism, and even though in the context of this, you might think that Midnight Children would seem easier to read in some way, shape or form, but I learned from the introduction to this that equally this had a controversy around it, and Salman Rushdie was nearly taken to court by Indira Gandhi, the Prime Minister of India at the time. Before we discuss that, it's probably worth talking about what this book is about. The elevator pitch version would be that this story is about Salim Sinai, who on the stroke of midnight, August 15, 1947, he is born. At the same time India is born, it is separated from the British Raj and becomes independent in its own right. You always have to remind yourself that this is a Rushdie novel, therefore it's way more complex than this. India is now a new country, and to the Sinai family, Salim is born. But all children who are born within a stroke of midnight are given magical powers, and the closer to midnight you were, the stronger the power is. Some of them are fantastic witches and magicians who can conjure and hide people and make them invisible. Others are the god of war. But Salim Sinai has the ability of consciousness. All of the children born at midnight, he can talk to telepathically. And also he has this fantastic ability of smell. It would be forgiven if you think this olfactory prowess would be a retelling of Patrick Suskind's Perfume. You sense everything, but more so what he can smell is the future rushing up to his face. Though Salim will not have a sister for a few years, he actually does have a twin, and that twin is the independent country of India. Salim discusses that though he is one, he is the 630 million people who inhabit the country of India. Whilst India is trying to find its feet politically under a Nehruvian government, Salim is taking his first steps. While Salim is growing up in school and becoming an angsty teenager, India is starting war with Pakistan and Bangladesh. This book is Salim as an adult writing down his memories of growing up and seeing India grow up at the same time. Though two separate bodies, their being, their experience of the world, their future, their past are all together. Cliche to say, but we know the history is complex, it's rich, and there's always two sides to what actually happened at those moments. And Salim is trying to grapple with this by not writing a story, he's really writing a meta-historical textbook. It sounds really odd to say, but Salim is really writing the history of India and the atrocities that come with it. Can you believe one man's version of what happened in India? No. And Salim tells you multiple times throughout this story that he thinks it happened this way, or it's a blatant lie. At one point, a side character dies, and then the next page he goes, actually that never happened. I don't know what happened at that point. Can't rely on Sinai, but you can rely on the consciousness of India. So all these thoughts and all these memories are flowing through Salim, and he's trying to get them out on a page, but it's difficult for him. A lot of times he says he doesn't want to tell you how it is because it won't sound believable. And this is where the magic realism element in this shines. Oh, quick side note, let's talk about the difference between fantasy and magic realism, because I think it's very important to understand the difference and see how Salman Rushdie is actually going to play with that. Let's start off with fantasy, because most people will understand what that is, which are fantastical elements such as magic, sorcery, but it's set in a world that's equally unfathomable and fantastical. Magic realism, on the other side, has elements such as magic, sorcery, but set in the mundane. It's set in the now. So it's something that you can actually believe. Again, very quick, the summary, but yeah. 15th of August 1947, India becomes independent. But something that I didn't know is that the day before, Pakistan is formed. And it's formed in order to separate Muslims from the Hindus. Religious tension is rife, and Salim is channeling his grandfather's memories, and through his eyes witnesses Hindus slaughtering pigs while the Muslims are in mosque for prayer on Friday, and they hang the corpse on the doors. And it's made very explicitly that it happens very often throughout the country. Citizens now have to decide to completely change country in order to live the life that they want in some form of peace. Therefore, if you're Hindu and you're now found in Pakistan, you need to leave. And if you're Muslim, you now need to go to Pakistan. The first 100 pages would make you think that most of the tension is going to be built around the religious groups. But as soon as independence happens, it gets a bit out of control. Not only does India seem to be wanting to move towards a Hindu state, we now have the language and the culture that needs to be separated. The city of Bombay, which is now Mumbai, was carved in an imaginary line in half, where it mattered now what language you spoke. Salim Sinai is approached by a group of men and ask him, does he speak their language? Salim now has to figure out, does he actually remember any of the language, which he doesn't speak, and he only knows a child's nursery rhyme, which, like most nursery rhymes, have a very dark underpinning to them. And it riles up the people, and they use it to incite a riot on the streets, killing literally their own people in their own city just based on the fact that they do not speak the same language as them. This is not a Bombay specific issue. It happens throughout India. If you speak Gujarat, if you speak Punjab and you are in the wrong area, you might lose your life for it. Boundaries are such a big deal in this novel, and the fact that they're all imaginary as well makes this a very difficult novel to traverse at times. Not only are you dealing with people's politics, you're dealing with people's culture, their ethnicity, their race, their religion, the language they speak, their day-to-day lives. Everything in India post-independent really is truly defined on where you sit in imaginary lines that people place. Rushdie's really keen to play with these boundaries. So when Salim is born, at the same time there's another child who is Shiva, and they are swapped at birth. Salim is born to a Hindu family and is now going to be raised by a Muslim family. Vice versa with Shiva. Therefore, Salim grows up thinking that he is Muslim when, in fact, according to the law, he's actually a Hindu. Where does magic realism even fit into this novel? As soon as magic starts to take place, the story becomes farcical and completely unrealistic at all. Which is a shame, because those moments actually happened in history. A husband shot his wife and caused a national scandal across India. People were bulldozed in their own homes for a beautification project because the slums were an eyesore and people didn't know that they were coming. People were taken off buses and forced sterilised in order to reduce the population of India at the time. 10 million people boarded a train to move to a country because they were afraid of their lives. When the train arrived, people were dead on the inside. They had been crushed, they were suffocated, they were trampled on. Truly, it's one of the greatest atrocities of Indian history that I've never heard of, and it was covered up by the government at the time, so not many people have heard of it. In order to give you some scope on that figure, there are 9 million people living in London. Imagine if all of London left London overnight. Unfathomable. Completely unfathomable. The darkest and bleakest moments of India's history really happen in the last third of this novel, during Indira Gandhi's emergency years. Indira Gandhi, after winning a landslide victory in India, calls in March 1975 a state of emergency, which gives her as much control as one can imagine. This novel does not flinch or hesitate to tell you how horrific, how inhumane those 2 years were under her regime. Remember at the beginning when I said Indira Gandhi tried to sue Salman Rushdie? She read this book and got in contact with the publishers. I've given you some examples of what happened in those emergency years, and the Indian press and the British press went crazy. Salman Rushdie had wrote one sentence. It was the one sentence that scared Indira Gandhi. It was this. It has often been said that Mrs. Gandhi's younger son, Sanjay, accused his mother of being responsible, through her neglect, for his father's death. This gave him an unbreakable hold over her, so she became incapable of denying him anything. That's the only thing that she complained about. She read the book. It's dumbfounding, and that truly is what this book is that you cannot believe that this actually happened. Even though the stories and the telling of them might not be factual and they might not be true in a true historical sense, it doesn't make the story and the history any less impactful. To say this is a brilliant, to say this is a great, to say that this is a work of genius relies solely on superlatives, and I know the superlatives are really the only way that some people can say and express what a work that is this grand, again another superlative, is. But really, it uncovers history. It uncovers the ground that you aren't aware of. It illuminates issues in history that has been covered up. It's all shrouded in mystery, and Salim Sinai is able to take you through that moment. The India that we know today was born on midnight, August 15th, 1947. Although it's the darkest hour that we know, let's not remember that its light is going to be there, and we have so much to learn from it.